I've recently taken up DMing for some friends of mine, being the dungeon master for their D&D campaign. It's a little bit intimidating going in, but even more so once you've done it the first once or twice and realize what you should have prepared for that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of. Now, I expect that this is likely to be different for every person, but for me at least, one of my greatest challenges getting started was creating NPCs. As the DM, you basically have the responsibility of being every single character that is not your players, your player characters, as well as the setting, the universe, the backstory, etc., etc. And because of the very nature of it, one of the things that makes it so fun, it's collaborative storytelling, but that's also going to mean that your players will inevitably do things, and because of the beauty of the game, it's rather unpredictable. I found myself, with more frequency than I expected, having to create brand new characters on the spot. They're going to want to talk to people that you invented on the spot and didn't expect to be important. And they're going to go places where you didn't expect them to go, and you're going to have to make up people to be there. So the creation of NPCs is something that was a huge challenge for me, and there are a couple of things that you can do to help prepare. Inevitably, there's going to be some on-the-spot gimmicking and creation, but that's what DMing is. You're going to have to do that regardless. Some things you can do to prepare. One thing, easy thing, if you're running your game digitally, pull up a random name generator and preview it first, because I've done that on the spot and was surprised, I guess, because I've only lived my own experience, surprised to find that not all random name generators are designed for fantasy role-playing. Actually, a lot of the more popular ones are for picking baby names, I think. I'm not really sure why they exist, but, find one that you like. Google random name generator and you will find 100. You can pick one that you like. Some of the fantasy ones are actually bad because the names that they offer are ridiculous and nobody will remember them. I don't know if anyone listening to this saw the Warcraft movie that came out. I walked out of that movie with some friends and I was like, all right, it was, okay. My friend turned to me, who hadn't played Warcraft, and just said, name one character from that movie. I was like, oh, actually. Because they all have fantasy-ass names. Every single one of them was like Krogthalon the Slaminator or whatever. So beware of specifically designed for fantasy random name generators. Preview them first and see if these names are going to be things that people can remember. That's a good tip, just whether you're using a random name generator or not. If every single character you create for your players is named Jaxalathrope, they're not going to remember that. You think a crazy name would be memorable, but if all of your characters are like that, it's going to get really hard. So find, your balance between memorable and exotic, and, that's going to match up maybe to species. I'm not saying don't use crazy names ever. Fit it into your world, into your backstory. Give it a little bit of thought ahead of time. So random name generators, those are very helpful. It doesn't hurt to have a few kind of like template NPCs that exist ahead of time. And I don't mean, the stats. D&D Beyond, if you use that tool, if you don't, I recommend it. It's amazing. That's going to have the stat block in there. If you have any books, and if you're DMing, I'm sure you do, you've got the Dungeon Master's Guide and or the Monster Manual, etc. You can use a commoner stat block for just about any NPC. So I don't mean the stats. I mean, write a 3-sentence character. So-and-so, so-and-so, dwarf, eye patch, merchant, caravaner. Give it a little bit more than what I did just now, but come up with a sheet of paper, some notes, or a document that you can have open in another tab or another window, where if they do go somewhere and you need to call someone into existence, you can pick off the sheet pretty easily. And depending on how gung-ho you want to be about it, how much free time you have on your hands between sessions, you could lump that into more martial type NPCs, trader type NPCs, religious clericy type NPCs. You can create categories that again fit the world that you're playing or creating, that would also align with the types of NPCs that your people might bump into, roguey, thiefy, underbelly, criminal type NPCs, whatever. I don't even do that. I don't get that advanced with it, but I have seen also online tools where people sell books full of, oh, this book has 25 interesting NPCs with long backstories of a martial background, mercenaries and soldiers and whatnot, sergeant of arms, characters that you can introduce to your campaign if you need to, or if you want something more interesting, you're struggling. I can see the appeal of doing that and the usefulness of it. I don't do it, but it's something I might recommend depending on how many characters you end up introducing per campaign. Another thing, think about what these characters look like. And I don't mean necessarily species, height, and hair color and what they're wearing. If you can give every single one of them something either interesting in their story that your player characters would find out very early on, but it's a lot easier sometimes to just think of one notable physical characteristic. And yeah, you can take from the list of pirate characteristics, they have an eye patch, or they're missing a leg, or they've got a hook for a hand. It doesn't even need to be something like that. Maybe you've got a UNT in your campaign as an NPC, and it's like, oh, so-and-so just looks like a regular dude, except he's got a patch of scales in the back of one hand. It's worth making notes like that because it's going to enhance the immersion of your game. But more importantly, in the creation of NPCs, if you can describe one physical characteristic, maybe even, like I was saying earlier, you've kind of fallen into the trap of names that are hard for your characters to remember. But they'll be like, oh, the bartender with the peg leg. That's going to help a lot. If people tend to remember because they're trying to imagine in their mind what you're describing to them out loud, right? So if you give them just one thing to fixate on, I think physical attributes are super easy because that's what people are just going to notice right away when they're talking to someone for the first time, some obvious physical attribute. But it could also be some part of their story. The bartender whose horse died the morning that we met him. Maybe something that would be noticeable immediately. Maybe they walk up to the bartender and he's wiping a tear away. That's weird. That's noticeable. That's memorable. And so they'll probably ask him about it. Even if they don't, you'll be able to remember him. This is a tool for you too, because you're gonna have to end up creating a lot of different characters, NPCs and characters, non-player characters, and well, I guess for the DM, all non-player characters are your characters, right? Because you're playing them. So, but I think those two tips: random name generator to help when you're put on the spot, and physical attribute or like an immediately noticeable backstory element that is going to fix someone into the minds of your player characters that need to remember later on who they were talking to, or who is in that room, or why they care about a certain place, or why they're doing what they're doing. Oh shit, that's right, we got hired by the merchant with the peg leg, whatever the case may be. So those are some quick tips. Oh, and I forgot the third one because I don't use it as much as I probably should. But, creating some NPCs ahead of time. If you're doing a pre-written adventure, a lot of the important NPCs are already going to exist. They'll usually give you a few more that you don't even need. So that's super helpful, and realizing how helpful that is. I've run some adventures out of books. I think I would also recommend, especially if you're doing a homebrew campaign, to create a few, just like a little bank of NPCs that you can call into existence as you need them. And they don't need to be super elaborate. Give them a name, give them a 3-sentence backstory, include in that backstory something noticeable immediately off the bat, something for your characters to hook on. So, there's my general advice. If you want more sort of DM tips and tricks, the point of recording this video, I'm pretty new to it. So where the con is, you're not listening to like famed, Matt Mercer or some DM who's been doing this forever and does it live and does it for studio performances. You're not listening to professional Dungeon Master, but you are listening to someone who just started to get into it for 5th edition, has run, or is currently running, rather, a couple of campaigns. And these are all the things that are happening to me. So you're getting the perspective of someone who, especially if you are a new DM, is going to be facing a lot of the same challenges as you. And these are the techniques that work for me to get past them. So that's the advantage of listening to an amateur, I guess. If I can, should be a salesman. I could sell anything. I'm selling my lack of experience right now, which is great. We've done a couple of other videos like this, sort of DM tips and tricks from an amateur just getting started. If you want to hear more, people seem to like them. We will continue to make videos like this, so please subscribe to our channel. You'll see every time a new one of those pops up. We do a couple of other goofy things too, which you may or may not enjoy. But if you like this, more things like this will continue to be created. So I encourage you to subscribe, and I hope you find this really useful. I'm a huge advocate for more people DMing because it is a challenge to the proliferation of Dungeons & Dragons, which I consider to be an amazing game, that they need a narrator, referee, world creator in order to function. And that's something that a lot of other games don't need. A board game has a board. A video game, is an existing piece of software or hardware. You have to be all that if you're the DM. So it's a challenge to the spread of the game that there are never enough DMs to go around. And it's an intimidating thing to get into also. I think it can be incredibly rewarding. I think I've had a lot of fun as a player character and as a DM. But I think I maybe had a little bit more fun as a DM. I mean, that's just my sort of control freak attitude, but I like pulling the strings. I like being the puppet master, so I've enjoyed it very much so far. If we could get beyond the intimidation of, oh no, I can't do this unless I buy 6 books and memorize them, which is not true, by the way, but the intimidation of running a world for people and feeling like the weight is on your shoulders to make it an enjoyable experience. I think having other people, other peers, in your community of nerd games, or even if you don't know them personally, you're just watching a YouTube video like this, I think having that kind of support system out there makes it a little bit more accessible. It makes it a little bit less scary to become a DM. It increases the number of DMs in the world, increases the number of Dungeons & Dragons players in the world, which is a great thing. It's a great social experience. So hopefully you like this. We're going to make more like it. And I encourage you to subscribe, and thank you.